Alright, here we go.
Alright. Hey Internet, welcome back for our weekly DM tip chat thing. I'm your host this week. You all hopefully know me from Tales of Cyril, our bi-weekly Saturday night game. Saturday afternoon game. There we go, time is hard. Here on our channel, Roll for Trouble. And I am going to be talking to you this evening about creating dungeons. I think the dungeons are one of those things that are like quintessential to Dungeons and Dragons. It is in the name. So a lot of people expect to go dungeon dwelling, finding the hidden treasures, you know, encountering traps and things like that. And if you're doing a dungeon crawl, you can do a hell of a lot with a dungeon. But even if you're not, I think that creating effective dungeons comes from answering a very simple two-part question. Why are they there? How were they created? This should help you come up with your topography for your dungeon. How was it created? Was it created by hand? Is it a naturally forming cavern within the ground or wherever it is you're putting this thing? Or is it a mix of both? You know, was it originally, you know, someone tunneling through to find something and then they happened upon an old, you know, relic area, obviously created from thousands of years in the past, whatever it is that you're doing. But answering those questions helps define and give you a direction of where you're going. You know, what is the dungeon there for? Just in the last episode of Cyril, they went through a mini dungeon, if you will. It was an escape route for the bad guys taking their captives out through the city without anyone seeing them. So that was my whole motivation behind creating it. It wasn't supposed to be anything elaborate. It was just supposed to be something that got the people from point A to point B. But they also need to be smart enough to say, well, we need, you know, we can't, in my logic, you know, they have to have staging areas because, you know, not all these people are ready to ship, as it were. So there were multiple areas for people to be put. You know, well, what is it used for? Well, it's obviously a smuggling operation. There's got to be guards. There's got to be something here that, you know, in case there is interlopers, they run into resistance. So it's not just hey, we found it. Ergo, the flesh golems in my dungeon. And also the what of the dungeon, if you will. How was it created? It's a naturally occurring cavern that people have discovered. So it has natural dangers, ergo the Gricks. So that was how I came about the general design of the dungeon. And honestly, I just kind of grabbed a pencil and drew some shapes and said, there it is! Which can be very helpful for some people with designing dungeons. It's not even like, I'm going to have a room here and then like 3 jut-offs and a room here and here. Some people do it very organically. Now, if you're one of those people who are like, well, I have to plan and you know, do everything meticulously, I think setting yourself those questions helps, again, drive your narrative in your dungeon. Some things that you have to keep in mind with dungeons. As elaborate as you make them, your players are never going to know it. And if you are, or you say your players are the kind of people who explore every door, it's because they know you as a DM put something behind every door. Not to say that you shouldn't, and if that's your style, go for it. But be aware that your design functions and how you design dungeons can create and, you know, direct your players' intent in the dungeon. Especially if you guys have been playing for a long time. But if you want to create a dungeon that's very complex, I found this really great website that actually talks about, I guess, some old school dungeons, some modules that had been written by a particular person, and his name was, oh shit, give me a moment.
Oh shit, give me a bonus, my favorite person. Oh my gosh.
I know, he's such a great writer. Is Paul Jaques. Apparently. He was a very complex dungeon writer back in the old days, apparently. According to this website that I found, which I'll totally post a link for you guys, because it's actually really, really informative. But some of the things that they talk about is designing dungeons, particularly that, especially if you want to create a very complex and dynamic dungeon, something that isn't static and just like level 1, stairwell, level 2, stairwell, level 3. Not something quite as static. Some things that they recommend for creating a very dynamic dungeon is having a dungeon with multiple entrances. That way, if for whatever reason, when they're going through the dungeon, they might come upon one of the extra entrances and come upon, new traps or something new that they weren't anticipating because it's an entrance and, or, it helps it creates a sense of that this isn't just a one entrance kind of thing. It's a very open and dynamic area that has multiple functions, multiple uses, and that probably multiple people know this and have been in and out of this thing. So maybe it gives them a nice sense of, oh shit, this is bigger than we thought. If you do have a multi-level dungeon, having the connections not just be in one area, have them there be multiple connections from level to level. And on that note, you can have connections that go or skip levels. So rather, in room 213, they discover a stairwell that rather than going straight to floor 2 goes to floor 4. Basement sub-level 4. Creating that so it actually can disorient your players a little bit, because then, they're like, wait. And then they find another stairwell, but it goes up one level, and they end up on another level, and suddenly their idea and their map is constantly changing with the depths when you play with depths. And of course with all dungeons, especially if you're doing ones that are supposed to be the crazy mazes and the things like that, that befuddle people. Secret passages. I think it's like dungeon tip 101, you gotta have secret passages. And whether that's, doors, it could even be traps. Or not traps, but like pitfalls that land you 3 floors down. When I was actually playing Pillars of Eternity, the first game, and in one of the dungeons you go through in that, there's an area where you can choose to jump into a pit. I did that. Of course, this was before I realized that it took you down to floor 5 where there's a dragon. And I ran into said dragon and died. So, and that creates a very interesting proposition for your players, especially if they don't expect to run into said dragon when they jump through the pit. But it definitely creates for an exciting moment and exciting playing styles when your characters jump into a pit, end up in a pool of blood, and encounter a dragon around the corner. So, it's just one of those things. One of the other tips it has, dungeons within dungeons. It's, I don't really know how to explain it without showing you the little diagram, and that's going to be really hard. So I'll just I'll send you the link. Play with elevation. Like I said, with like the multi-levels, having stairwells that go from level 2 to level 4, or go.
No, keep going. Continue.
My tech support is mouthing questions
Not
in the
to
corner,
you.
but not to
to
me.
you.
But I'm distracted.
Nope. Dungeons within dungeons.
Anyway,
Dungeons within dungeons.
Multi-levels.
Sub-level. Yeah, there we go.
Aliens.
Back on track.
Multi-level marketing schemes.
You can play with elevation within levels. So if you have, if something goes up, you can have it go up a little further and maybe down back, but it's all within the same level. Again, that plays with your character's perception of the space. That plays with the character's, because some people do try to like, okay, we came in here and we turned left, and then we ran into this room, and then we went out and we turned right. I totally went the opposite directions of what I was showing you, but don't mention it.
Listen to the words, not the hands.
Or either, it doesn't matter. But if you start throwing in elevations and stairwells, they have a hard time mapping it. So it can allow for them to get lost. It can allow for them to circle back to uncover other things that maybe you had planned on them finding and then they kind of missed. But again, they can circle back and find it again. And especially if you want to have a really dynamic dungeon, especially if you have players who really enjoy dungeons, that really creates the draw for them because they're like, oh man, there's more to discover, there's more for me to see and more for me to find. Depending again on your type of dungeon that you're making, one thing you really want to consider is treasure. Not all dungeons have treasure. There's not treasure at the end of the tunnel. It's not a big pile of gold unless it's a dungeon or unless it's like a dragon's lair, which there probably is a large hoard of treasure because dragons. But, having just, one or two things that they could find throughout, especially if it is a large dungeon that's really old and has been like, has been the, I did yours. It was me. I just hear a very quiet, it was me. Fridge buckets.
Anyways, dragon's large hoard because of reasons.
Treasure.
There you go.
I'm sorry. My brain is frazzled after work, y'all.
The hanking cat is also not helping.
It's not. Come here, Lala.
Okay.
Let me love you, child.
Yeah, there you go.
And then you can see her too, internet. Say hi. Say hi to the camera. She's not a big holdy cat. But treasures don't have to be a lot. But if you're having a dungeon that is immersive or something that's super, super big and has been around for a while, most likely there have been others to come before who have died and lost their stuff. So you can always use that. They come upon a pile of corpses and they raid their shit because adventurers do that. It's like a thing. You can get them some really cool stuff. Or, you can have hidden caches. Just things that are hidden in everyday items. With a really great perception or investigation roll, they might find something really awesome. But again, it's really dependent on the players. It really depends on you as a DM, what you're willing to shell out as treasures. But I think that you need to be considerate of your dungeon size. A lot of people, when they go into dungeons, they expect treasure of some kind somewhere along the way. The bigger your dungeon, I think the more treasures, even if they're small, 1 or 2 trinkets here and there, you need to have them. Unless you just really want to have like one big treasure pile at the end, said dragon is a great example of that, you can always do that. But it's something you have to consider and you have to balance very well. Because obviously you don't want to overload your players with all of the things. And then suddenly for the next encounter, they're super overpowered because they got all of the magic items. So it's something you as a DM have to really consider when you are planning your dungeons. Here's another cat. It's cute. It's not the same one as before. This one is a little fatter. A little rounder.
She's not.
No,
They're
she's
the
not.
Exact same to the ounce.
But she's filler. She's fuller.
They're the exact same weight to the ounce.
That doesn't matter, her body shape. But anyway. Hi, you're cute.
No.
I know, you made squeaky noises. You're cute.
Please.
So yeah, I think dungeons are a very dynamic thing, and when used appropriately, within your game and within your party, they can be really fun and add for a lot of different stories and adventures. And again, I will totally post this story or this link I found. It's a great page. It has a lot of amazing advice, several different articles, several different pieces that you can read through. So if you're into dungeon building, I highly recommend it, which I will post on Tumblr first and then have my other people do the Instagram other bullshit thing.
Have your people do our whatever.
I don't do
Don't
Instagram.
have anybody's people do anybody.
Yeah.
How about that?
So about that.
I will ask my friends to repost. So yeah, any questions about dungeon building or just general questions in general?
Yes, there was, and chat went crazy because that's what happens. One of the questions that we got is, how do you balance plot points if players miss a door, i.e., a door that has like a major thing behind it?
Well, the wonderful thing about dungeons is that your players don't know what the fuck you planned. So I would say if they've gotten to a point in the dungeon and you're like, shit, they fucking missed that damn dragon or, whatever it was that you wanted them to find that was a plot point, switch the rooms. Like, literally take what was there, take the thing you needed, boop. Your players don't know the difference. Their experience of your dungeon is linear. From the door they enter to the hallway they go through to the doorway they enter. That is their experience. They don't know what they missed, what they're supposed to do, unless they're just those people and you've like, here's what you're supposed to do, and they're like, left field. In that case, I don't know what to tell you. But, again, you can always just take it, chuck what was in there, take what you need, pop it in. You're the DM. You're the controller of the world. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And again, your player's perception of the dungeon is very linear as to what they've been doing. So you can change the dungeon as it goes, You can, the dungeon you can have is just a map. And you could literally say, door 1 is this. Whatever door they go into. This happens in this room. Regardless of where it is on the map. Because you can do that. If you want it to happen in a certain order, you can do that. They have the experience of winding through the dungeon and choosing the correct path. You can literally just have step 1, fight orcs. Step 2, fight donkeys. I don't know. Step down. It was the first thing that popped in my head.
Step 1, fight orcs. Step 2, fight donkeys. What's wrong?
I should tell you about the time that I had magical goats in one of my dungeons that healed everybody. I did that. It was my first time DMing, so don't hurt me.
No. I want to hear the story now.
Oh god, I can't even remember what it was. They were going through a dungeon, which was a first DMing time. It was a roundhouse thing we were doing where we were all playtesting 4E. And so we were all taking turns DMing, which was my first time ever DMing. And in my dungeon, I was like, I think I'd put like a small dragon or a young dragon in the dungeon to fight, or a chimera or something like that. I know what it was. I put a chimera in there as the main bad guy or the main creature to fight. Well, chimeras are made out of goats, dragons, and lions, right? So I was like, well, you have to have all 3 animals in the area if they're magically combining to make the chimeras. So goats. You gotta have goats. So I had them in the pen, and I said they were magically blessed by a god, so when you find the goats, you're healed. That was my reasoning behind the goats.
I mean, okay.
First time DMing.
The next question we have is, how often do you put secret loot into dungeons, like under random rocks or secret passages? Hashtag asking for a friend.
Brian. I mean, I have put things in places, and like, if they find it, great. If they don't, oh well. I think that there was, in one of the very first episodes of Cyril, I think that there... Did y'all find this stuff in the Chimera's nest? Or the Manicore's nest?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
And then we ripped out its teeth.
Yep. There was
And its
something
spines.
else. There was another...
The rock that we didn't fight.
No. Yes.
And
That we avoided the shit out of?
Goodies in that nest.
Yes, that's what it was. There was goodies in the nest of the rock that they fought.
That we did not.
That they actually did not find, because they didn't fight the rock. But yeah, like, there's just, is the idea that, rocks are huge. They eat pretty much anything and everything, including adventurers. So there's probably some good shit in that nest if you go and look. As far as dungeons are concerned, probably the same way. Occasionally just, there's a hidden passage or there's something there, put something there. If they find it, great. If they don't, it's a bonus, and I think that that's cool. But at the same time, it can be like a super special bonus. So it's something like more powerful or like more special than the rest of the stuff you put in the dungeons. So that way they still get the treasure and they still get, great stuff when they're going through the dungeon. But if they find it, it's even better. So the answer to the question, I guess, is yes.
There was another question. I'll have to find it again. What are your favorite ways to build dungeons?
I'm very freeform. I'm either very freeform in that I will just draw something and say, it's a dungeon. Or I will scour online for pre-made maps and then make them my own. Which I did for a dungeon, which they never went into. I still have it on my DM program in case they go back. But yeah, it's already planned, laid out. I found a nice map. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And just was like, okay, here's this, here's this, here's this. I just kind of added my own shit to the pre-made map that was already online. Because I'm the more mazy dungeons I'm not great at. Because it's just I like something that's very focused in its design and function. So for me to create things that are very chaotic in their nature is very hard for my brain to function and do. Ergo, I go to online and find other people who are good at it, and I take their work and thank them for it. And then never repost it or, claim it as my own. But yeah. So I'm a freeform dungeon maker. I literally draw shit and say, that is it. I can show you, actually, hold on. Now that they've left the dungeon. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but...
Not very.
Ah! Too many papers!
Hello, large cat. Formerly large cat.
You go to play.
Hold on and I'll judge you. Yeah, that's barely showing up.
Oh, boo.
You're gonna have to
No. It's not dark enough because it's in pencil, because I only write in pencil. Maybe I'll scan it and I'll post it online. How about that? But yeah, I'm a very freeform artist artist. I don't use that term for myself anymore. I'm very freeform when it comes to dungeons, so. Where's my phone?
I don't know where your phone went.
Right there. Oh, hey. 30 minutes goes by so fast. I always think I'm going I've talked this much, but in fact I've talked this much.
I mean, that was all the questions that we had so far.
Well, our next door's neighbors are using their garbage disposal, and it always alarms me.
Very alarming noise. I get this concerned.
Me and the cats are all looking at the wall going, what? But yeah, if you have nothing else, internet, thank you so very much for joining us this evening. And as always, we will have no Friday night game.
As always, we will have no Friday night game. That's awesome.
We will be having a Saturday evening game at 6 this Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. We are having the Murder House from the Curse of Strahd, a one-shot, maybe two-shot with Susie.
Yay!
I will not be here. Sorry, Internet. And then we will be having River of Turicel. We have now moved to Sundays. We're somewhere between 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. There, we've decided.
We're somewhere between 10 o'clock.
Somewhere between 10 o'clock. So 10 o'clock, Sunday mornings, here on our channel. And then, of course, every Wednesdays. don't, it's 8 o'clock, y'all. Wednesdays, of course, we're here with our DM chats. Next week is Susie?
Mm-hmm.
Susie with her DM chat, so ask her all the questions about the murder house.
Oh wait, Brian has a question.
What?
In all caps, he says, "How do you like Dwarven Forge?"
I actually really like it. It's really interesting to be able to kind of visualize your maps and actually see them. The hard part is the cleanup afterward. But they're really fun to play with. I think that they help kind of give life to the environment for a little bit and kind of give everyone a visual representation. But, you know, if you don't have Dwarven Forge, you can always just draw your maps. Like this. Song Faces of Paper, so you don't have to be extremely, you know.
That's not that
Okay.
good. Hashtag awkward.
You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to have Dwarven Forge to make your maps. Just use some markers and some paper. You're good. D&D can be very cheap if you know where to look.
Brian says, "How easy is setup
In relation to what? Dungeons?
with Dwarven Forge?"
Takes for fucking ever, actually. Because with Dwarven Forge, like, you kind of have to play with the shape, especially if it's not a like square room. You know, you have to, okay, is there a curve here? Where does this piece go? And it's kind of tedious, and also I hate kneeling on the ground just because I'm old. So that's always a pain in the ass too. It's great in its visual representation. I hate the setup and I hate the takedown. Great review.
Brian asked if that was the map he water walk noped out of.
Probably.
Yes, it was. The answer is yes.
It's the only large river map I have. I think it's the only map I still have because I threw away all the rest because we were never going to use them again. And I said, it's time to go. So yeah. Back to my closing statements because I was so rudely interrupted.
Thanks, Brian.
So yeah, we have Saturday night game at 6 for the Murder House with Susie. Sunday, River of Teresa with Andy. At 10. And then a.m., 10 a.m. in the morning. So it's like your Saturday morning cartoons, but on Sunday at 10. And D&D.
And with more teeth.
I do have Badger does have her handful of teeth.
And Harold.
Bless Harold. I love
Still
him
have
already.
Harold. If you don't know who Harold is, you should watch the last episode of River of Teresa. And then, of course, Wednesday night chats. As always, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. And then next Saturday, we'll be back with Tales from Cyril. Too many titles, guys.
We are stressing out our production team. It's fine. Our production person, I should say.
Next Saturday on the 29th. Yes. I'm terrible
We are
with
so
dates.
good with dates, y'all.
I'm terrible with dates. Andy is like pulling her hair out. Next Saturday on the 29th, we'll be back with Tales from Cyril, my game, 12, as always, and then we'll pick up with our bi-weekly schedule from there. As we go into October, we're going to be doing some spoopy stuff. So we'll get the lineup to you guys as we kind of solidify things, but we're going to be doing a spoopy one-shot every weekend in October, starting on the 6th, which will be my weekend, which I didn't realize was right after Cyril, so shot myself in the foot with that one. So yeah, look forward to it. If you have any suggestions for spoopy one-shots, please let us know. I need suggestions completely and totally. You can let us know on Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I think that's pretty much it, but you can always check other social media sites and look for Roll for Trouble. That's pretty much our name anywhere and everywhere. Post your suggestions, post your questions. We look forward to hearing from you. And if you love our channel, please subscribe and tell your friends and family. Maybe your friends more so than your family, but hey! Come join us, check us out, love us, and we will see you this Saturday.